Welcome back or welcome to the Strategies Graywolf podcast. I am your host, Nate Reese. You're here because you believe disability is an inability. This podcast was created to tell Olympic and Paralympic athlete stories on the road to Tokyo and beyond. Today on episode 21, we have a treat for you. We have my teammate and good friend, Mariah Kelly. Mariah is a mid-distance runner who specializes in the 1500 with a PB of 409. Mariah wears many hats, professional athlete, coach, ambassador, plus much more. Something that maybe Mariah doesn't know is that she's actually one of the most influential people on me, and that is a very, very short list. Without further ado, welcome the person who banters with me the most on a daily basis, Mariah Kelly, to the Strides with Graywolf podcast. What's up?
Hey Nate, thanks for having me on. You know what? I didn't know that. So I don't know. I feel like I just won an Oscar. Like maybe it's a pretty high honor.
It's written down in my Grey Wolf mentality. So it's Mariah Kelly is at the top of the list. So
well, I hope you know the feeling is I feel likewise about you. Even though I'm reluctant to say that on the air.
Oh, I know. So we have a fan question. So I figured we would start off with that. And I can't tell you who it's from because it's going to give it away. But the question is, who is your favorite teammate and why is it Aaron Teschuk?
Well, I don't know if I can say you're my favorite, Aaron. You know, that's a tough one, but I will say that you are one of my most, I don't even know what to say. I guess I could say that, I guess you're my favorite. I guess I can't really get around it. But I have many favorites. So I'm not pinning myself in a corner on that one. It's like a trick question. Thanks a lot, Aaron.
So I thought it would be really interesting to start this podcast off with who is Mariah Kelly? Because I think we all have our thoughts and who we think Mariah is, but deep down, like who do you think Mariah is?
It's a good question. I feel like I'm figuring that out as I go. You know, I think everyone kind of figures out who they are as they go through life, and I guess for me, when I figure out more about the depths of who I am is when I go through a challenge, because I think that's when true character shows through, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, too much. I would agree with that. I feel like sometimes, just in life, you're like, oh, I'm this person, and then something happens. You're like, well, damn, I'm not that person. I'm someone else because this event has changed me. I mean, I would never think I would be a Paralympic athlete. Like I mean, Olympics 100% when I was young, and then boom, this happens, and it's crazy the way that like events can just mold you.
No, it's so true, and it's like what I feel like John always talks to us about this. Like, how do you look at life? Do you look at it glass half empty or glass half full? And challenges, when you come across them, it's easy to kind of look at it glass half empty. But I think you are so great at this is, you look at a challenge and you see it as glass half full. And when you can do that, challenges can bring you to new levels in so many different ways if you embrace them. But if you resist them, then they get taken down pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of challenges, I know you and I think our performance mindset is like really similar. And I know mine kind of comes from a dark place because, in movies you see when someone's about to die and they're on that feeding tube. And I never thought like I would have to experience that. But that's where like my performance mindset comes from. And I've always envied you because you're pretty much as tough as it gets. And so where does your performance mindset come from? Because we've never really talked about this. We both just think each other's pretty tough. But like other than that, I've never really heard of where it actually comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the reasons why we get along so well is because we think similar and we go about things in a similar way. But unlike you, I've never been through a super big challenge like you have. Like I've never been on a feeding tube, and I've never got hit in the head with a golf ball and had to deal with the challenges of disability after that. But I do connect with having motivation from a dark place. And I think, uh, you know, I don't really know where it comes from. I guess maybe just the fact that like my whole life I've always been the big underdog. Like I've always been told, you know, you're not good enough, give up. And that's sort of, my dad used to call me the angry runner because I would just fuel off of anger. And I think I do in a way still, but I try to be a little more on the loving side of things now, because I realize that although anger is a very powerful emotion, it is not as powerful as love. So I try to find a happy balance with both. But I do love, like, you know, stories like yours of people who overcome big challenges and you know, go beyond just surviving them, like thrive on them. And I think I get my motivation from people like you and other people who have similar stories. So I really live through others, I think, in that sense, since I don't have one of my own that I would describe in that way.
Yeah, no, I mean it's so funny. Like it's like, yeah, like these big moments happen, but sometimes it doesn't need to be like catastrophic. Sometimes it's just like something happens to you and it really pisses you off, and then it all of a sudden just changes you. Like I think you're more a controlled rage, like, especially when you're on the track. Like you're a very loving person, but man, when you hit the track, I'm like, I better not misstep when I'm pacing Mariah, or I am gonna get run over like a train.
Oh yeah, you know, it's funny because I mean you just paced me on the weekend, but I was thinking, you know, because you go through the worst case scenarios before a race, so you're prepared for them. And one of my worst case scenarios was like, well, what if Nate goes out way too slow? And my immediate thought was like, I'm just gonna yell at him. I'm gonna tell him, pick it up. But you know, I know I can say those kind of things to you, and you're gonna thrive off of it.
Yeah, and it probably won't be Nate pick it up. There'll probably be a couple other words attached to that one.
Yeah, you
But
know, a lot of
but
other words.
yes, absolutely. And obviously we know where you are now, very successful. And but like, how did you get into track and field, and how did Niagara Falls play a role into your actual passion for the sport?
Yeah, that's a great question. My mom was always a runner. She was a good runner in high school, but then had some injuries and had to leave the sport. But she was a marathoner. So I grew up on the marathon scene with her. And my dad was a police officer and high level hockey player. And so he was, you know, he always brought the intensity. I think I get a lot of my intensity from him. You know, he built us a gym in our basement, and he used to take me down there and bring me through a whole weightlifting circuit, and he used to have me box with him, which, you know, I think a lot of my my fire comes from those sessions. But I started running, you know, seriously when I was 15. I joined a local track club in Niagara called Niagara Regional Athletics. Now it's called Athletics Niagara. And honestly, like before that, I had a natural ability, but it wasn't like a prodigy or anything. And I decided to join the track club because I was tired of sucking. You know, I wanted to be good at this thing called running that I really enjoyed doing. And to me, before, you know, running around a track, I used to just run in the woods all the time, like just nonstop. I was always high energy and high emotion in everything I did. And so when I found running, it was like an outlet to be a little more normal, because, you know, if I wasn't running, I was like Jim Carrey's daughter, you know, like just crazy. Like just I needed Ritalin is what I needed, but no one ever gave it to me. So I ran instead, and that was I mean, it mellowed me out. It allowed me to be more normal. But you know, there's even, I think Heather would even comment on this, you know, she likes to give me really hard training cycles so that I'm not so loud. But it takes a lot to shut me up, I'll say that. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I joined Niagara Athletics, it was just sort of like I just got better and better every year because of the coaches there and the training group there. We had a great little club. And then, you know, I got this idea in my head that I was going to run in the NCAA, and always I wanted to make the Olympics. So it was the number one goal all the time. Everything else kind of like plopped in as stepping stones to that. Like, oh, I have to go to university in order to continue running. to get to the Olympics. So I'll go there. And then when I got to university, it was like, oh, I'm going to have to keep running after university to get to the Olympics. So I guess I'm going to do that. It was just like whatever it takes to make the Olympics was always the plan.
Yeah, when in high school did the realization happen that you wanted to go to the States for college? Because there are some pretty good running colleges in Canada. And so when did that kind of thought pop in your head?
So this is not at all to discredit any of the Canadian universities, because I think that they have amazing programs and a lot of amazing Canadian athletes have come out of those programs. But I was just of the mindset that the best athletes in the world went to the NCAA and they trained in the US. And I wanted to compete with the best. And I wanted to be a part of, I wanted to be in over my head. I wanted to go to a school where I had no business being, and I wanted to get to a level that people thought I couldn't get to, because that's just who I was. It was just in my blood. I wanted to do that. And I just, at the time, I didn't see the Canadian university system as providing as much of an opportunity to compete with the best on a regular basis as the NCAA did. And so I just figured it was a better opportunity to challenge myself and prepare myself for the next level.
Yeah, and so you go to Niagara Falls to Waco, Texas.
Oh, God.
So how was that transition? I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, I remember going from Arizona to Victoria, and I thought that Canada and the US were like really, really, really similar, but there's quite a bit of differences. And so, how was it going from Niagara Falls to Waco, Texas?
Well, I had to tone it down a lot. Let's say that. But yeah, it was very different. I think the most challenging thing, and this is not at all to do with the culture, more the temperature. Like, I went from Niagara Falls, that has the coldest winters you'll probably experience, and some of the most mild summers, to Waco, Texas, where like the humidity is 100% and it's 100 degrees at 6 a.m. And so that first cross country season, I was getting heat stroke like every other week. Because I just like, I got this big mane of hair and then I'm not used to the heat. So it was just a recipe for disaster. But after you got heat stroke a few times, it was like, okay, I'm adjusted. But that happened every season. Like, I never escaped the heat stroke season. Like, I always went through heat stroke and then I got over it and it was all better. But that was the hardest. And then I think too, it was, yeah, it was very different culture. Like, Baylor was a Baptist university. There was a lot of people there that were very strong in their faith, and I grew up in a Catholic home, and I even am reluctant to say that because we were Catholic, but we weren't really Catholic. Like, we went to church on the holidays. Like, I know people know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was interesting seeing people who were truly invested and committed to their faith, and it was different, and I wasn't used to that, but it was something to see. It was special in a lot of ways, and I would say, as difficult as it was to feel like I fit in sometimes, it was fun to stand out too. So.
Yeah, and like I feel like when I went to college, I had this just I thought I knew exactly what was gonna happen. I was gonna make NCAA's my sophomore year, then junior year I was gonna make the final, and then senior year I was gonna try and win a medal. And I didn't make the NCAA once. So how was your experience versus what you thought it was gonna be before you actually went?
Oh yeah, I mean, similar to you, like, I went in like thinking I'm gonna be the best when I leave, and it was a freaking crapshoot. Like, didn't go that way at all. And so, I went in and I came in with two metatarsal stress fractures, and like, I'm not talking about like stress, like normal stress fractures. Like, I mean, I shattered two of my metatarsals, like completely done. And so I was out for half the year, trying just to get back to running. And that sucked because I came in and I wasn't like a really big recruit. I was running 211 in high school. and that was my best. And so I had a big jump to make, and being injured was not going to help me make that jump. And so I sucked. I friggin' sucked. I ran 4:54 in the 1500. Okay, people, that's not the mile, that's the 1500. And that's not high school, that's my first year university. So I was garbage. There was high school girls that would have handed it to me no problem. And I mean, I just, I was angry about that, and I put that anger into my training, and eventually I was running 4:16 and 2:05 in the 800 from like freshman year, running 2:14 and 4:54, and it was just a lot of hard work and a lot of stubbornness. My coach at Baylor, his name was Coach Harbor, he used to call me one of the most stubborn athletes he'd ever coached. And that's what I was. I was stubborn. Like, if I just felt like I could do it, I was going to do it. And I was going to run through 18 million brick walls if it took that.
Yeah, I do remember when I first moved up here, calling my mom and being like, "Yeah, I think I found someone as stubborn as me." And she was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, I know it's hard to believe, but yeah, she actually might be more stubborn than me, which is kind of impressive."
You know what? And I feel like I met you for the first time in San Diego, if I'm right. And I remember, talking to you for the first time. And my first impression was, wow, this guy just threw sauce back at me. I love him. Like, because the most normal reaction I get is like people are taken back by what I say to them, but not you. You were ready. You came back with fire, and I was like, this guy is like, he's everything. Who is he?
I just remember growing up and like new friends would come over and my mom would be like, "Did you just know he's like faking his brain injury? Like it didn't actually happen." And I was like,
I know. I actually watched a video, and your mom, and I'm not sure if it was your dad or your stepdad, but it was your mom for sure. I know. And she was just talking about you and talking about you as a kid. And everything about her, like, she didn't say anything about her personality or anything she believed in, but I could just tell that she was like the same as you. And I was like, who is this lady? I need to talk to her more.
I know, I know. I was like, "Mom, you cannot come to Victoria because we cannot have you two in the same area, or my life will be over." Oh man.
Yeah.
And then,
Parents are great.
oh yeah, yeah, most of the time. And then you made another big transition to the hub. When did you kind of think that, oh, I can be a professional athlete, and knowing that you want to make the games? And how was that transition from Texas, and then now you're going up to Victoria? Because Texas is, something, and then Victoria is, very different. It's very more hipster, not as much in your face. I personally love Texas, but yeah, it must have been another kind of awkward or just different transition.
Yeah, honestly, it was like going from one extreme to the other. I was going far right and then swinging far left. And I love Texas too. I think Texas has a lot of great qualities, a lot of great people, and Victoria, same way. But you're right, very different, very different. And I think my thought process after university was simple, and it had nothing to do with professional running. I didn't even really think of that. I was more thinking, how am I going to make the Olympics? So, and the only way I could do that is join a professional group. So it was just a part of the equation. And I was looking around. I actually looked at your old alma mater, Furman University with Robert Gary. I was thinking about that group, and I was thinking about a group in Portland with Jonathan Marcus, and I came across Heather by accident. Like, it was like fate. One of my old club coaches knew I was looking for somewhere to go after Baylor. I was even considering staying at Baylor, but the whole visa thing made it complicated. So I was talking to him, telling him my issue, and he told me about Heather. Never heard of Heather before in my life. But I was thinking, like, hey, it's a chance to go back to Canada and see what it's about. Like maybe I'll check it out. And so I talked to Heather on the phone, and she invited me to come check it out, and I did. And I got to Victoria, and I had no like, this sounds dumb, okay, and I admit being a dumb Canadian for this, but I had no idea where Victoria was, what it would look like, none of it. I didn't even know the island existed, okay, and judge me all you want, but I didn't know. And the only thing I knew about BC was Whistler, and I loved Whistler. And so when I got to Victoria and saw that it was similar to Whistler in a very mini scale way, I was like, oh my God, this place is incredible. And I met Heather, and she was incredible. And, you know, I don't know, there was a weird connection between us. I can't even describe it, but I just felt like she was the best way I can describe it. And this sounds weird, but she was like the yin to my yang, you know, like if she was, water, I was fire, but we complemented each other well from my first impression with her. And I knew she was going to be, for some reason, I had no reason to believe this, but I knew she was going to be someone to help tame some of my neuroses and psychotic mindset. And I know, I'm sorry, Heather, if you're listening, I know this has been a complicated job for you. I should have went to the psych ward first, but you know, she's been absolutely incredible. And the reason why I ended up choosing Victoria was actually more because it was somewhere at the time that I could see myself living, even if things didn't work out. And I was being realistic at the time because I was coming out of university a 416 girl. Like realistically, I had to make an enormous jump to even be in the ballpark to make the 2016 Olympics. And at the time, I was, you know, had half a brain cell, and I didn't get hit by any golf ball. And I thought that, you know, if I don't make this Olympics, I'm not going to try for another one. But then I came to Victoria, and I got to train alongside Hillary, and I got to see, you know, how much it really took to prepare to be ready to make an Olympics, and realize that I didn't have enough time to make that kind of jump in a year. And I just wasn't in a place where I was going to be able to do that in 2016. So that's why I recommitted to 2020, because I still loved it, still wanted to work hard. And I realized that making an Olympic team was a long road.
Boy, is it a long road. Holy
Yes.
smokes. What was your initial thoughts when you heard about the pandemic? And I remember my thoughts were I was just numb. I just stared at my like white wall for like 4 hours, and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't really know much details about it, but I just remember getting a call from Heather, and she's like, Nate, are you okay? And I'm like cussing like crazy. And like, but what was your kind of initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, man. Like, I remember the first thing I heard was that Canada pulled out, you know, and this was before the Olympics got postponed. So I was through the roof. Like, I went to my room, I turned the lights off, and I sat in a corner. I was just like, this is ridiculous. How could we pull out? But then, you know, I called Laurence, and we had a conversation, and Jeff was on the call too. And he was just saying how, you know, he thinks that the Olympics are going to get postponed. Canada's not going to be the only country. And then other countries started pulling out too. And Heather called me, told me the same thing. So, you know, I started to have some hope that like, okay, well, we're not just going to miss an Olympics. Like the Olympics are going to get postponed. It's going to happen another time. And so I never really had the like, oh, this is not happening. You know, I did for a moment, and that was terrible. But then when I realized like it's just going to be put on pause, it felt a little better, but it was still hard, you know, like, you know what it's like you're in Olympic year mode in the Olympic year, and it's so hard to turn that off. Like I was like deep in it. And I think that what I did next was a lot to do with how deep I was into that mode. And so, and by that, I mean, like, after I got the news of the postponement, I just did a 6-week training block that was like the hardest block I'd ever done, the most volume I'd ever done. And I was dealing with a little bit of a niggle that I was ignoring and just friggin' pounding away at the training. And I just think, I had nowhere to put that devastation and that energy. And so I just put it into my training, as I do all the time. And it led to an injury, which in hindsight was stupid. But honestly, like, I don't regret it because I feel like I learned a lot through the process, and the injury was minor. So it wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it was really hard. That was a long winded answer for no reason. But
Yeah, and I feel like our team, we're so well integrated, which I mean the communication within our team is just really really good. And I think two themes of our team is being adaptable and having a why. And I never thought I would have to get a doctorate in being adaptable during this time, but and I think John really always stresses you have to have a why, like you have to have it. And has your why evolved at all during this time? Because I'm sure it's really been tested.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing, like, I mean, and I'm with you. Like, John has always been really persistent on us knowing our why and keeping that sacred. And for me, my why before all of this was simply because, like, I loved it and I had this pure passion for what I was doing, and I really wanted to see what I could do. And that was just burning inside of me, and this is my why. But then when this whole pandemic happened and the social injustice movement happened, it became so much bigger than just me. Like, my why definitely evolved. I think I realized things about myself that I didn't really like and I wasn't proud of. And a lot of it had to do with how selfish I was in my pursuit of this goal, and how many people I loved paid for that selfishness, especially Dennis. And I think I saw Dennis in a whole new light. I realized after, like, this is, again, I'm saying this because I think other people may experience this too, but after 8 years of being with him, I realized I never really knew what he went through. I never really understood what being him meant and what being black was like. And when I saw that for the first time after the George Floyd incident, it hit me like a an 18 wheeler. It was a tough one. And I cried a lot because I was just so ashamed of how blind I was and how ignorant I was to what someone I loved and so many other people I cared about in my life were going through. And so I think, now knowing what I know, and really starting to understand it and feel it and try to actively seek it out in my everyday life, it's given me more energy to my why, because Dennis has always been very much a part of my why, but now everything, his whole being, is a part of that too. And I'm with every person who wants the world to reach a place where everyone is treated equal, and that we're beyond the racism and inequality that is currently exists. And so I want to be a part of that movement. And in any way I can do that, I'm going to do it. So, and that's, through your platform, through running, like, it becomes a part of it. So it's just, I don't think I could put more fire into it now.
Yeah, and I mean, I always say that I think if you believe in something that's bigger than yourself too, it's just so much easier to exist, like just to be, to care. Like sometimes there's tough days where you get out of bed, but then you're like, man, like for me it's like, oh man, like someone's still paralyzed, like yeah, I can walk, I'm freaking lucky, but like I'm doing this for, the person who didn't have great medical insurance, or the person who wasn't lucky. And I think it's it's tough reality to come to be like, damn, there's people being treated a lot worse in life than I'm treated, which is just hard pill to swallow, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, it's crazy because I never even thought about, like, that being part of your why. And that's so powerful, Like, when you think about the fact that you are who you are, even after everything you've been through, and how many people look at you and look up to you and have hope because of you. Like, that's just, you can't give people a better a better gift than that. Like hope is something people search for their entire lives.
Yeah, and we can be so selfish as athletes too, and it's I feel like it's so much easier to not be so selfish. Like you said, like Dennis is one of my favorite peeps, and it's especially when it comes to practice. I feel like I always run faster whenever Dennis comes out to practice. So yeah, it's really cool that he's even maybe more part of your why now than he was about a year ago, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, all of that. I couldn't even speak more to how important whys are and hearing your why. And that's really powerful. And that's so the cool part about sport is hearing people's why, I think.
Yeah, no, it's always funny how you can get to that same end result, but there's just so many different turns and bumps that you go through. And I think this would be a really good opportunity. I'm just curious because adversity is something that I almost love, which is kind of weird to say, but has there been a moment in your life where something was really, really tough and you looked at it so negatively, and then now you look back and you're like, actually, that was my greatest success because that set me up to be the person who I am today?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I mean, it's hard because I feel like I've had a lot of moments like that. For some reason, I feel like it's repeated. Something bad happens. I look at it like it's the end of the world, and then all of a sudden, I realize it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But if I could zero in on one, um, and I know she wouldn't mind me talking on this because she's opened up about it recently. But I was roommates with a girl from Australia in university. Her name was Robin Bennett, and she was extremely talented and loved running just as much as me. But she, ran into some depression, a little bit of an eating issue, and yeah, it was really, really, really hard. Like I was roommates with her, we were best friends, we were training partners, and I never saw depression up close like that. And seeing it firsthand was like being in a dark tunnel with no flashlight. Like you just didn't know what to do, didn't know how to help. I tried to let people know what was going on and reach out for help. But I think a lot of people see depression as the same way. Like they don't want to get involved, they don't know what to do. And it just seems like this lost pathway that no one knows how to handle. And long story short, it ended up being too much. It ended up getting to a place that was really bad. And she ended up having to pull out of university and take some time away. And she never returned to running. And that whole thing, it was so difficult because it was a mix of watching someone I love get torn apart by the sport that I love. And it was difficult to find joy in it, knowing that and seeing it that way. And I had to find a new perspective quick, and it wasn't easy. And for a long time I was just angry and sad and all kinds of emotions. But when I did finally turn it around, I was able to recognize that running was a place that was dark for her, but it wasn't for me. And I could still run for her, in spite of everything she went through. And honestly, like watching her overcome what her depression, and now she's like a nurse and she's like a fitness guru, and she's just doing so well in her life. Like it's motivating. It gives me inspiration. And a lot of times when I'm going through a training cycle and I just feel like, oh my God, I can't go out for my second run, I'm going to die. I think of her and I think like, man, if she can overcome something so difficult and so complicated, then I can get out for my run. And so, yeah, although that event was really, really difficult at the time, it's something that gets me through the hard times now.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious. I think mental health. I didn't know what mental health was, to be honest, until I moved to Victoria. Like my family never would like negatively look at it, but we would just never talk about it. Like it was never ever talked about. When did like the kind of the term mental health come into your view, and how has that journey been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was similar to you. Like, I grew up in a family that believed in like exactly what you said. Like, they weren't against the mental health, and it's not that they didn't believe in mental health struggles, but we were just more of the mindset that like you just keep on trucking forward, like you don't let things get you down. And I think a lot of people are that way. I don't think there is much awareness around on mental health and how different people deal with it. And I'm even more aware of my own mental health now than I ever have before, because I never saw it that way, and that was just my perception of it. But I think when I really became aware of it for the first time was because of what happened with my best friend and training partner. Like, when I saw her go through that in a front row seat, I realized that for some people mental health is like they don't know how to get out of a bad situation. And I get it, because like I think since then I've been there in very small doses. You get to a place in your life where you just feel all these emotions and you don't know how to deal with them. And I'm so grateful for John, because I think he offers us so many tools and so many practices that keep us on track, and keep us away from thinking that your emotion controls everything. Like, he teaches us how to discipline our emotions. But I understand people who don't have those tools, because I know if I didn't have them, that my emotions would take control of me.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. I remember when me and John met, and I first got here, and I was just like super messed up, and like me and John were just kind of going through it, and we like found out that it went back to when I was in ninth grade, when my ex girlfriend committed suicide, and like I didn't know that was we had just broken up like a couple months, and she just got in drugs and committed suicide, and I remember like having to write, like I wrote a letter to her and didn't like send it or anything, but just like kept it in my room. And like who knows that what you've been pushing down for so long, and it's crazy the things that I mean that you struggle with. And I think that's why it's so important in sport. I feel like that's what we do sometimes. We just keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down. And it's I'm just happy that we're able to talk about it on this, and especially with someone like you.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, I mean, I can't say again, like, I'm just like you. I've always pushed down my problems and not talked about them. And I'm sorry I didn't know about your girlfriend. And I can't imagine how difficult that must have been, because I know what it was like to be in a almost close situation to that. And it was terrifying. So,
Yeah.
my condolences to you for that. But
Yeah, it's crazy to think. I mean, like 10 years ago. I mean, it's just crazy to think. But we'll finish this more on a on a
on a happy note.
on a on a happy note. I think I really created this podcast to really help the younger generation to have a blueprint and understand that there's so many different ways to get to that end result. You've gotten it completely different way than I've gotten it. And so I was just wondering if you had any advice for the next generation coming up. What are a couple of things that maybe you wish you would have done different, and maybe a couple of things that you're happy that you went through?
Yeah, okay. That's a tough one, but I'm gonna try to make it short and sweet. I think if I could offer any advice of all the things I've learned, it would be, one, you got to go after the things you love, no matter what. Like, if you figure out that you love something more than you love anything else in your life, you got to pursue it. And you can't stop until you feel like you've done what you wanted to do, because if you don't, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. But you also have to keep checking in, and make sure that the love is still there, because as human beings, I think we're capable of loving all kinds of different things. But as long as you have passion for it, as long as the fire's burning, you got to keep going no matter what comes in your way. And secondly, I would say I think we all get in a rush to accomplish our goals and to have this fancy list of accolades. But, if there's anything I wish I did more, I wish I would have enjoyed more of the moments I was experiencing and not been so focused on the future plans and the ahead goal, and just been more present and immersed. I think I would have had a better time, so to speak. And, the last thing I'll say as my number three is, as much as it's important to hold yourself accountable and be disciplined and do all the right things in order to achieve the things you want to achieve, I think it's more important to be kind to yourself. So, if you have something of a constructive criticism that you want to say to yourself, make sure you back that up with something good. Don't forget to tell yourself that you're a badass and that you're going to take on the world. And even though you've made mistakes, it doesn't matter because you're willing to own those mistakes, learn from them, and be better. And that's what makes you a badass. I think that's what I would say to the younger generation.
Awesome. And I mean, it's so funny. The I wish I enjoyed the moments more. Like, I feel like that's every athlete after they're done, they allude to something of that, and it's just so important to actually enjoy the road. I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, even like when I won worlds, like it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to feel. Nothing close. But like the hug to when I hugged Heather after that was like the moment that was like the coolest for me. So it's funny how you like almost dream of this moment, and then it's just not that. It's not as good as you think it is, and yeah, it's kind of funny sometimes.
Well, and I feel like that means so much coming from you, because you've reached the pinnacle. Everyone wants to win worlds, everyone wants to set records, and you've done that. And so to hear you say that, like, that means a lot because it means that it's true. The moments you have when you accomplish that are actually more important than the moment itself. And I think too, what you're trying to say is like the journey is everything. Like, and so going to practice with you and seeing you work hard every day and having you there and us working hard together, that's probably going to be one of my highlights versus like making the Olympics or being in the Olympic final or anything like that.
Yeah, no, and let's talk about your sponsors. New Balance. Obviously, they've supported you for a while now, which is awesome. And so, just how has that relationship been, and how important has that been, in your career?
Yeah, I mean, New Balance picked me up in 2017, and I was so excited, so grateful, and they've been absolutely incredible. Like, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of a brand like the New Balance brand. They're the one of the few companies that held on to, as far as I know, like most of their athletes through the pandemic and supporting them through to the postponement of the Olympics, where other companies have done the opposite. And so I just feel like something that's special for me about New Balance is they really do make you feel like you're a part of a family. Like, they're a private owned company. They do so much in the community, and although it's really amazing having super fancy outfits and fast shoes, they're not just about that. They're about offering good back into the world, and they took a stance that I was proud of on the social justice movement and on the pandemic. And I just, there's never been a point in my career where I've thought, man, New Balance could do better at this. They're always on the frontier of doing all the right things. And that makes you feel proud. Like, I think something that really drives me beyond my why is who I represent, who's in my team. And the fact that I represent the West Hub and Heather and Jeff and you as my training partner and my other training partners and my family, my friends, my hometown and New Balance, like, those people make me proud, and I feel honored to represent them, and that goes into my drive because I want them to feel proud too. I want to give back a gift to them because they've given me so much. And so I think, John also always talks about your sacred circle, and when you have a sacred circle that really uplifts you and brings out the best in you, you reach your best self. And so I feel very grateful and honored to have so many special people in my life that do that every single day. And when I get on the start line and I have New Balance on my chest, it's important to me that I do well for them and that I make them proud, because they have been an absolute like joy to me, and they've given me so much, and I just want to give a small piece back to them as a appreciation.
No, that's great. That's a great way to put it. And like you said, like you basically are where you come from too. I mean, I think that's so important. That's, I think your roots are that's just helps you in who you are. And that's why I always like on the podcast to kind of learn about that. And, it was really cool hearing you talk about Niagara Falls and kind of where you came from, which is really, really, really cool in my eyes. And so now we have some rapid fire questions. These are more fun. And then two final questions, and then you'll be done with me for the day.
For the day.
So first off, if your life was a movie, what would be the title?
Get Rich or Die Trying.
Dream destination.
Mount Everest summit.
Oh my. Favorite place you have traveled to?
Victoria, easily.
Sea level or altitude?
Altitude all day.
Favorite New Balance kicks?
Well, for a trainer, the 1080s, because they offer you a soft ride and they're light. And for fast shoes, I love the 1400s and the fuel cells.
Nice. Love it. Love it. And then two final questions. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Mariah_Kelly1. I'm on Twitter, but I don't tweet. I don't know what I like to talk shit in person. And then I'm on Facebook, but also not really. So probably mostly Instagram, or if you're lucky enough, in the flesh.
I can vouch that she does like talking crap in person more than over text. That is, I can definitely vouch for that. And lastly, question I ask everyone: what do you want your impact to be on the world?
I think if I could just have one thing, like if I die and this is the only thing I do, I just want to inspire someone else to go after their dreams the way I'm going after mine, because it's been an unbelievable ride. And I think anytime you can get someone to believe in themselves more than they would have if they didn't watch you in your journey, then that's a really special moment. So yeah, one person tells me that one time and I'm going to be the queen of the world.
I love it, Mariah. Thanks so much for coming on. It was so much fun chatting with you. And I thought I knew a lot about you, but I learned even more.
You know what? I feel the same way. I learned so much today. So now this is a secret, but I might have more respect for you. Believe it or not.
Guys, that means she's going to kick my butt tomorrow in a workout or something. So
in my dreams, I do all the time.